This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is the quintessential platform for creating your image and expanding your reach across the web. Set yourself apart with a gorgeous website, talk to your fan base, and market anything from your goods, works, and even your time.
Hey everyone, Crisis here. For as much as I love video game series such as the Arkham or Metal Gear games, I as well hold the Legend of Zelda near and dear. Since first playing the games, I have stood beside fans of this seminal and beloved franchise for years since, so it should be no surprise that I'd like to take the same approach with its universe and characters as I have done with many other of my favorite heroes from gaming on this channel. I implore you to watch such videos, as I'm sure you'll see another series that you enjoy as well, and you can get a better understanding of my total approach to power scaling in general. That all is to say that today I'll be breaking down the attack power, durability, combat speed, martial skill, equipment, and extra abilities of the Hero of Time. Perhaps the most iconic iteration of the Hero of Legend, that being the Link featured in Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and as a spectral sword instructor in Twilight Princess. When it comes to power scaling, a chronology is imperative to establish. For instance, many series feature statements like, X character is the strongest ever seen, or some variation of such. With Zelda, this can be complicated due to the nature of the timeline and developmental history of the games themselves from that perspective. Case in point, many older but official sources surrounding the series acted under the assertion that each game featured the same hero at different points in his life, in fashion with official word from the developers of the games. Of course, now we have an official chronology generally accepted by the fans, which I will be adopting for the sake of this video. That being said, some older sources will be accepted here. Generally, for instance, the A Link to the Past strategy guide is considered valid when pertaining to that game itself, even if the information surrounding the wider events of the series have been essentially retconned by later sources. No series has a perfect ironclad continuity, and I'm not about to throw the baby out with the bathwater if an official source has a handful of suspect statements. To that end, the games themselves, official strategy guides, websites, and encyclopedias approved by Nintendo, game manuals, etc., will be considered as valid sources. Also, various calculations derived from the series will be used and linked below in the description. And now, let's begin to describe the legendary power of the Hero of Time.
But first, let me take a minute to talk to you about Squarespace. On the site, you can host your own videos. It has unmatched blogging tools to share any experiences you believe are worth putting out there. From photos, videos, and personal stories, it has it all. You can also see the raw numbers, how many people resonate with your stories, and use tools such as keywords and other market strategy methods to get your product seen. And I'm speaking from experience, as I have actually used the service myself to make a website showcasing my personal favorite cryptids. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/crisis, 10% off of your first purchase of a website or domain. And now, back to the video.
In my opinion, the Hero of Time is hands down the most powerful Link featured in the franchise. And just in case you thought the Legend of Zelda was some contemporary medieval story for whatever reason, then I've got to tell you that's not the case. These are fictional races of people using magic swords and spells, fighting with fragments of power derived from the timeless creators of the entire universe. And yes, each bearer of any piece of the Triforce is endowed with a portion of the god's power. Not just the Triforce of power, but every piece. Getting one of these pieces is essentially like someone worthy picking up Mjolnir from Marvel Comics. You just become god status, so just know that pretty much every relevant character in the series has at least one piece of the Triforce empowering them at some point or another. I've just got to get it out of the way here that Zelda far exceeds the limitations of real-world power levels in pretty much every facet, lore and all. Using something pretty point blank and mild as an example, Link was able to defeat Volvagia with the Megaton Hammer, the dragon being capable of creating a volcanic eruption equal to around 1/3 the strength of the most powerful nuclear bomb ever detonated, that being the Tsar bomb upon its death. More consistently, however, Link massively outshines these meager displays. Working up to the more impressive feats, I'll start with a young hero's display against Majora. This demon was able to conjure an alternate reality within the moon with which he had already warped into the state we see it in. This dimension obviously housing a star, which would scale the entity's power to star level. It then turns into its most powerful form, which is struck down by the fierce deity, Link's ultimate weapon hosting godlike power on top of his Triforce of Courage. The mask as well may have even created Termina, at the very least altering the universe's space-time in every facet as most sources describe, even if the realm did exist in some form before his arrival. Say a Camaro was built in a factory and then someone magically warps every aspect of that car into being a Mustang. While he may not have originally created it, he's effectively remade it into something else entirely. Termina being a parallel dimension to Hyrule, considering two parallel lines must run alongside the other to be considered parallel, matching its dimensions exactly, this would mean Majora affected and practically created an entire universe, as Hyrule is described as such, and Link was able to defeat it in its most powerful form. Bear in mind that this was without the Master Sword, the iconic blade known for reflecting dark magic, which would have acted essentially as kryptonite against beings like Majora, which makes the feat for Link very impressive. The Master Sword, on that note, is imbued with the Light Force, an infinite pool of energy found in all things. Zelda, a bloodline descendant of the goddess Hylia, is also a host of the Light Force and was seen blessing the Master Sword with said power. Having literally infinite power, as it's stated, would be at least universal in terms of attack power, as the universe is likely either infinitely expanding or a static infinite universe, at least based on real-world models. So the Hero of Time, bearing this blade, would furthermore have energy equivalent to a universe-destroying attack behind his sword swings. Again, like I feel like I have to reiterate in every video, attack potency is not equal to destructive capacity. That is to say that while Link has the energy behind his sword strikes, relative to attacks that would destroy the universe, he himself cannot destroy the universe. His sword isn't as big as a universe. Nehru, one of the three creation goddesses herself, crafted a protection spell called Nehru's Love. On the official Zelda website, it was stated that these creation goddesses accidentally created millions of parallel universes, such as Termina, when crafting the main dimension. This shield spell should be able to withstand more energy than this, seeing as it only makes sense in this context that intentionally creating something would be greater than accidentally doing so, meaning the hero possesses magical defenses proportional to millions of universes. Even if you're conservative and say Nehru has 1/3 the power of the creation trio, seeing as 1/3 of millions of universes is probably still within that range. Din's Fire was also stated to be created by a creation goddess in the Nintendo Power Guidebook for Ocarina of Time, meaning Link would have comparable power in the form of an omnidirectional fire blast. So again, he has shield and attack spells intently created by those who constructed the entire Zelda multiverse, mostly by accident. And for skeptics who might look at Din's Fire and how it kind of only ever necessarily lights torches, Link is actually stated to be a master of these techniques, so he'd likely be able to control the energy output of this attack when necessary. So in character, he's not going to want to just destroy everything around him when he needs to light torches to progress in his adventure. The Ocarina of Time 3D strategy guide calls Ganondorf a threat like Hyrule has never before seen. On the surface level, this would put the Demon King above the likes of Vati from Minish Cap and Demise from Skyward Sword, as those are both threats that Hyrule faced prior to Ocarina of Time. Many fans of the series hold Demise in a high category, seeing as he is the origin point for much of the evil in the series, but sometimes improvements are made onto the original. This statement and the nature of Ganondorf in relation to Demise make the most sense given the context. Demise is a being who had been undone by Hylia/Zelda and the Hero of the Sky, and therefore casts a curse on their spirits, in his words, dooming them to wander a blood-soaked sea of darkness for eternity, and he laughs as he dies. He's of course referring to what would become Ganon, so given the context here, it wouldn't really make sense for Demise to revel in his curse if he didn't think that it would be effective in combating Link and Zelda, a pair effectively proving to be superior to Demise himself. Essentially, Demise fights this guy and loses, but laughs over the fact that some dude later on will make their descendants' lives a living hell, something Demise knows he just failed to do as he was just bested. This is worth clarifying, as Demise was stated to have created a hyperspace, further controlling and warping the energy within. The term hyperspace is defined by the Merriam-Webster dictionary as a space of more than 3 dimensions. To break this down very simply, the spaces between, say, the second and third dimension are greater than infinite distances. That is to say, regardless of how much 2D matter exists, it can never become great enough to transcend to the third dimension, as in the one you and I inhabit. As an example, I can draw a line for infinity and it will never become a square or cube. This is consistent as well, as Demise is straight up stated to have conquered time and therefore should have some level of dominion over it, time being the theorized and generally accepted element composing the fourth dimension. Demise being able to control and possibly outright create a realm consisting of more than the 3 contemporary dimensions would therefore have power infinitely greater than that of our 3D universe. And based on the context and nature of Demise's curse, as well as the statement regarding Ganondorf, the Hero of Time would scale to these higher dimensional forces, as Ganon pretty much concedes inferiority to the hero in his base form, and is even bested by Link when channeling the full power of the Triforce of Power and entering his Dark Beast form. I think it's also worth pointing out that Ganondorf's goal was inherently less destructive than Demise's. Demise wanted to wipe out all life, whereas Ganondorf just wanted to rule it. So the statement about Ganondorf being a threat like Hyrule has never seen, you can't really argue that that's because he would want to cause more destruction than Demise, because the opposite is actually true. Link's speed is equally as legendary. He possesses light arrows, which are described as beams of light once fired on numerous occasions, granting Link a light speed attack. This becomes remarkable to consider when factoring in characters like Ganondorf's ability to react to and dodge said light speed attacks. This makes sense as well, considering the fact that across the timeline most heroes have to resort to using light arrows against Ganondorf, but despite that, the battles against him are typically described or shown to still be fierce in nature, so it's not some easy fight, meaning Ganondorf is likely dodging these light arrows or keeping up with them in combat, as opposed to just being stomped by them. Link, of course, scales to Ganon's reaction speed, meaning he too would be capable of dodging his own speed of light magical arrows. This becomes especially consistent when accounting for the Beamos enemy seen throughout various Zelda games. Mechanical statues which are stated to fire lasers many times in official sources. These enemies are seen throughout almost every game in the series, and each hero who faces them has to deal with their barrages of lasers across the timelines. So since the Hero of Time arguably performs the greatest against the most powerful Ganondorf, I'll get to that later, a fair point of comparison as nearly every version of Ganon, whom many heroes battle, stems from this very source, it would scale his speed to nearly every single other Link, who would have to consistently deal with the speed of light laser beams. There is the fact that characters within Ocarina of Time state that time does not pass when Link's in a town or village, which, when applied to the speed formula, would essentially mean that Link would be talking and moving around in a place with 0 time, and would practically be infinitely faster than any finite speed, such as millions of times the speed of light. Of course, this is most certainly due to the N64's hardware limitations, as this feature is not carried over into later games, but if one were to insist on determining the potential in-universe ramifications of these statements, There you go. Also, again, tying into Demise potentially having conquered time, it may mean he has immeasurable speed, which is even greater than infinite speed, seeing as, again, time is an institution of the speed formula, and if he can dominate it to the point where he could say, go back or forward in time through just raw speed, although that's highly contentious and likely improbable based on the plot of Skyward Sword. For a little more reasonable of a high end for the Hero of Time speed, there do exist calculations regarding Breath of the Wild Link's speed based on his Flurry Rush, in the ranges of hundreds of millions of times faster than light. Breath of the Wild is naturally a hard game to scale to the rest of the series, as its official place among its continuum is a mystery and is highly contentious among the fandom. If I were forced to compare or contrast the power levels of that game with Ocarina of Time in this case, we see that among Calamity Ganon's main goals in destroying Hyrule is the manifestation of a physical form, something that he's not quite capable of achieving, as his form just prior to becoming a dark beast is described as incomplete. So it stands to reason that based on Ganon's desire for a body, that he must figure his chances of beating Link and Zelda would be at their best if this goal were achieved. So given the fact that the Hero of Time was able to keep up with the corporeal Ganon in both of his forms, he'd likely scale to the speed of the Flurry Rush, given that Link in Breath of the Wild is constantly building his power back up as it was pre-healing coma to combat Calamity Ganon. The Titan of Termina has all the skills becoming of a legendary hero. He's of course a master swordsman, archer, and an adept shield wielder, capable of defeating elite masters of swords and axes, such as the Dynalphos. He is so skilled that he's capable of impressing the Gerudo, Amazonian-type warrior women, whom the only other male they considered remarkable being Ganondorf, someone described as a master fighter in the era of Twilight, a combatant who the hero of course defeats in one-on-one combat. The hero is of course constantly training, valuing might and skill in life as well as in death, honing his skills at the various training grounds across Hyrule and Termina. His abilities grow to the point that as a Spectre, he's able to impart the Hero of Twilight with sword and shield techniques so advanced that they are only capable of being performed by the goddess's chosen hero. Moves so dangerous to the Hero of Twilight that to even perform them, they pose an immediate risk to his life, such as the Mortal Draw, an attack with which there is no defense. This becomes even more impressive as it was one of these lesser moves which allowed the Hero of Twilight to outmaneuver the King of Darkness, meaning the Hero of Time could achieve the same. This Link can even best someone possessing equal skill to himself, shadows of the hero that can copy his every move, showcasing a remarkable ability of adaptation in combat. He is also rather proficient in stealth, having sneaked past trained Hyrulean knights and elite Gerudo warriors. The Hero of Time's arsenal is iconic and practically suited to any adventure. However, I'm only going to describe his equipment when pertaining to combat or facets of these tools that aren't self-explanatory. He's equipped with the Mirror Shield, capable of absorbing and redirecting powerful elemental magic, the Megaton Hammer, a weapon capable of defeating a monster that would have single-handedly ended the Goron species and possibly wipe out all of Hyrule, fire, ice, and light arrows, Deku Nuts, which essentially act as a flashbang, healing potions, the Lens of Truth, which can see invisible beings and through illusions, and the Ocarina of Time, the abilities of which are traveling back in time at least 3 days into the past, speeding up time by hours at a time, slowing down time, creating a lightning storm, and ease the weary spirits of the dead, allowing them to pass on to the afterlife. So if Link was fighting some ghost or undead being that was too mad to die, Link could send him on his way. The hero of course has the transformation masks, being able to turn into a boulder-strong cannonball in the form of a Goron, the bubble-blowing Bubble Baby, Deku, and the water-breathing electric aura emitting Zora. His lesser masks include the Mask of Truth, stated to be able to read the hearts and minds of whoever Link chooses, including animals, meaning if the Hero of Time was fighting someone who was aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, he could learn them with a glance. The stone mask allows Link to pretty much go unnoticed by all those around him, effectively bolstering his already impressive stealth skills. He can become a powerful giant with the Giant's Mask, or improve his travel speed with the Bunny Hood. The Fierce Deity Mask is stated to have the merits of every other of Link's masks, so it may very well afford the hero every aforementioned mask-based ability, and as well grant the power to project sword beams. As far as extra abilities go, the Master Sword is capable of sealing away evil entities, potentially causing their fundamental being to decay within the blade. The sword as well straight up resists dark magic, going as far as undoing a spell originating from the Triforce of Power wielding Ganondorf, where the Triforce of Wisdom bearing Zelda could not. He can as well channel his own formidable magic power into his blade strikes, emitting powerful energy blasts. He can withstand either extremes of temperatures, having a tunic invulnerable to magma-hot environments, and is as well shown adventuring in frozen tundric caverns. Link is also resistant to the effects of time travel to an extent. Many of his items and weapons will remain in his possession even if he goes back in time, and he as well keeps his memories of future events even if he's sent back against his will. Also, I guess it goes here, but the hero is capable of trapping otherwise intangible spirits in bottles and drinking them too, so I guess he can eat souls.
Oh, please! I have no soul.
As a wielder of the Triforce of Courage, he should boast some level of abilities showcased in hosts of the other two pieces, as it's stated that Link, Ganon, and Zelda all share in these blessed powers. Those being healing, as the hero's health was restored upon the three pieces resonating with each other, a resistance to being turned into a demonic entity by Ganon's shadow magic, possibly weakening evil beings as Ganon was nerfed by the Triforce of Wisdom in the original game, the ability to resurrect and shrug off fatal injuries, seeing as Ganon was revived and granted such strength by the Triforce of Power, the emission of spiritual pressure, and the ability to cast shadows. Although it's possible that the Triforce pieces simply amplify all wielders to the same degree in terms of raw power and grant different abilities from there, so Link only possibly has some of the more esoteric techniques seen in the other chosen ones. Speaking of such, the hero can as well simply refuse to die, as the shade of the hero refused to pass on in the face of a lack of an heir. In this form, he can walk in the mortal world as a golden wolf spirit, potentially pulling people into a pocket realm where he is shown invulnerable to any harm caused to him by the Hero of Twilight, where he can as well multiply himself and shoot magic energy spheres from his blade. To close in a manner, I'm going to summarize why the Hero of Time is the most powerful Link by comparing him to his most notable competition. As I already explained, Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time is stronger than Demise, the Hero of the Sky's greatest foe. The Hero of the Winds was stomped by Ganondorf, and only won after King Daphne's wished on the ultimate power that is the completed Triforce to ensure Link survived, pretty much meaning that his victory is more so the Triforce warping reality to ensure the desired outcome. And Link still needed various light arrows from Zelda to beat base Ganondorf, who didn't even feel like turning into Dark Beast Ganon, his more powerful form. The Hero of Twilight learned pretty much everything he knew from the Hero of Time, and was even considered unworthy of the title of the hero by the Shade, regardless of the fact that Link bore the Triforce of Courage at the start of the game. While I would argue that the Hero of Twilight is relative to the Hero of Time by the end of Twilight Princess, as he does earn the spirit's respect, he had far more assistance when facing Ganon when compared to the Hero of Time. He had Midna as well as her own Twilight magic. Then later on, Zelda herself helped by tagging Ganondorf with light arrows. All the while, Link targeted Ganon's gaping wound identified as a weak point, even achieving the finishing blow via these means. Compare that to the Hero of Time, who beat Ganon in a 1v1 with zero assistance, with Zelda only momentarily stunning Dark Beast Ganon after Link had already softened him up, just prior to defeating the Titan. Again, it's hard to make any concrete claims in this way about Breath of the Wild, but Like I said, it's implied that Ganon with any kind of complete body would be stronger than what he demonstrated as the ethereal Calamity Ganon, so considering the Hero of Time defeated Ganondorf in his prime, with the Triforce of Power on top of that, something Calamity Ganon does not possess, I feel comfortable stating that the Hero of the Wild still has some room to grow. The hero of Legend from A Link to the Past also performs in a far less impressive manner against Ganon. A big misconception here is that Ganon literally wields the full power of the completed Triforce in this encounter. However, there is much to contradict this. For starters, the game makes it very clear that Ganon needs more power to even leave the Dark World to conquer Hyrule, as he sends Aghanim to capture the Maidens to weaken his dimensional seal. If Ganon could just use the Triforce at a whim, the ultimate power that can warp entire realities, this wouldn't be necessary. The game's manual even point-blank states that Ganon cannot perform this feat based on his own power. I think what's most likely here, based on all the evidence, is it's like at the end of the Wind Waker, where once the individual pieces are extracted from the host, the full Triforce manifests as a tangible object. Ganon may have had the power within him at one point, but in order to make a wish with the thing, as we know he's done and plans to do, the Triforce would need to be out of his body and existing as a physical object, and thus would have no bearing on his actual power, as its energies would not be flowing through him when in combat. Which is what we literally see in A Link to the Past. Link beats Ganon, then walks to the next room, and then the Triforce rises from its pedestal. Not that it even really matters, as the Triforce was actually stated to be growing ever weaker throughout the entirety of the Downfall timeline, or the timeline where A Link to the Past takes place. Not even to mention that this Link was getting rocked in his fight according to the game's strategy guide, getting outmaneuvered constantly and having to canonically resort to life potions, with it being stated that the only way for Link to win here was by using Ganon's silver bullet, silver arrows. Compare that to the Hero of Time, where the light arrows he used could only numb Ganon for a few seconds. They aren't his end-all be-all weakness or the thing that will kill him. The Hero of Time defeated a prime, peak, Triforce of Power wielding, unwounded Ganon with far less assistance when compared to his peers. Ganondorf thought little of the Hero of Winds and Legend, and he was more than eager to fight the Hero of Twilight again and again, with the only warrior ever known to strike fear in the King of Evil's heart being the Hero of Time himself. And just look at his equipment. No other hero boasts a combination as potent as the Master Sword, multiple magic power and durability multipliers on top of the Triforce of Courage in an era when it's at its most powerful, plus attack and defense spells confirmed to be created by the same gods who formed the Triforce, the ultimate power in the Zelda universe. Lore and scaling-wise, the Hero of Time is simply the strongest Link in the series. He boasts universal to higher dimensional attack power and durability, combat speed at least millions of times the speed of light, mastery over combat, and a near inexhaustible cadre of equipment with many ways to increase his already godlike power. He may very well be the most powerful and versatile character I have ever covered on my channel, but be sure to check out those other videos and compare them for yourself. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.